essence of absorption, which is nothing. And so then you start to really embody that you are in who you are in the body. And then as the body begins to associate to absorption, from absorption, you'll be able to see, say, and action. Say becomes action. And then you'll get the abstract and the sensuality, communication and sensuality. Because it's coming from a deeper place than your projection, your seeded projection. Instead of it coming from a psychic place, expression is coming from an intimate place, the into me I see place, the very depth of what you are. So there's the first stage, is that it doesn't coordinate. So there's like, it's not a natural default, but then it does become a default. As it becomes a default, more and more defaults start to appear. And as more and more default places appear, it's like you blossom. Each default then becomes a blossom, and it starts to open up and it starts to flower. And what's flowering is your knowing, what is absorbing. And it takes time, but there's no natural default. As soon as awakening occurs, the body doesn't default. The body, you can see from knowing absorption that the body has its association in what is seeing, but it may not correspond to that, the body. Okay. Then the more it begins to blossom, the more then your knowing, your absorption becomes established. It becomes more and more established. So that in the end, you start to see that in your absorption, that the world is simply your mind, your body. The way you see the world is nothing more than the way you've reacted to your body. So suddenly, when you go out and someone does something like turn their back on you, or they say they're a friend of yours amongst the friendship circle, and they've got everyone turning their back on you, you'll see that is a reaction to your body. And then the liberation really begins to come through. I'm laughing because it sounds silly, doesn't it? Everyone hates you and it's liberating, right? But it is. It is liberating. It's like, oh, you hate me. Okay. And none of that will qualify the light that shines through you. None of that will qualify consciousness itself. Of course, there may be something in you that finds no default in the understanding of that. And so it may have to break, it may undo, but that becomes a living sacrifice that you give to God by absorption, by forgiveness, allowing for atonement. You realize that other people's illusions, other people's games are simply a reaction to their body, acceding to body identification, becoming a projection of you that isn't you. They don't see you. They don't see this as is. But the beauty of it is they're showing you your own in accordance to what is true. And then you can go, ah, I am not the body amidst these tensions, you see. It's quite amazing. It sounds far-fetched, what I'm saying, but it's not. It's in fact the truth. This is where absorption, in comparison to doing, excels, completely excels. So let us look at a distinction between absorption again and the usual interpersonal method of self-conscious development, right? Self-development. With self-development, there's always the pride of what one has done, of how one is working. I, after the awakening, my pride fell away uh, to a certain extent. If there's pride in me, then it will be revealed. But the pride of what I had in working a program was very, very strong. I had no idea. I didn't realize until the awakening occurred. And it's only upon awakening that I saw how much I'd invested in my recovery. The investment I had in my recovery, the way I worked the 12 steps and spiritual principles in order to overcome self-defeating patterns of behavior, I did it in a way that was almost like improving my appearance. It was very akin to my appearance. It was as important as does my hair look all right, which is still a problem with me, actually, to be honest. Um, you know, this pride of this is where I am in my recovery. And I know you probably get this, right? You're gonna, I believe everyone will identify with this, is that you get to a level where you start to experience levels of maturity in emotional holding or deferred gratification or holding one's pain without acting out, understanding levels of emotional expression, all of these things. And suddenly you start to compare yourself to others and you think, well, I'm at a different level. I'm looking for a partner that understands this level of emotional intimacy. I'm looking for a set of friends that understand my certain recovery ideology. I'm at this place. And I began to see this pride and I had it myself. And then I began to see it. But compare that to awakened consciousness. An awakened consciousness sees nothing, it sees nothing but awakened consciousness, you see. It doesn't say you're not awake enough. You can't be my friend. You're not, you're whatever. From the standpoint of consciousness itself, knowing that the only thing that you do is react to the body, that's the illusion, but everyone is this. Then what you see is some people hide it better than others. That's the thing. Some people, even with their program, as rigid as it is, as refined as it is, can inhibit their own seeing. And yet I can sit down with a fool and a fool will see from it. And it will be remarkable. I could be talking to someone who's never done any recovery, but the aliveness in them, the wildness in them, the complete abandonment to that availability they have within them is spectacular. And they may not even know what it is, but it's incredible. Take the hillbillies as an example. Less culture, more alive. I know what it is I go for. Alive. So there is a pride to one's own endeavorment when it comes to self-development. And people compare self-development with levels of self-development. I've never seen a spiritual teacher do that. I've never seen a spiritual person do that. People are what they are. But at the ground, it is pure consciousness. And we are all that, you see. So it did take time for the self-realization or the awakening to stabilize in the matter. Awareness in itself is always stable if it knows itself. There is that stability always. But for that stability to exist is a different matter. One, it has to learn absorption. And then when you see through absorption that all reaction is simply a reaction to the body. And that's where we learn what body attachment is. And body attachment is our own identification with the body. And that's a mental and an emotional self-seeding of reaction to the body. So we see this. We saw how there's an instinctual, there's a memory felt in the body, and the memory in the body is always something like 8 seconds before the reaction. So there is this unconscious bias to everything, whether you like it or not. And this is, if there is this unconscious bias to everything, that means you're sleeping. If that to you is the reality, you begin to see this. So if there is this unconscious bias to things, and then the reaction, then the effect of that is then a belief in that, then it's simply a reaction to that. And then you begin to see, this is the problem. This is the problem. You come to see what separation is. Through identification with the body, we become an emotional thinking pattern that in itself is a reaction to the body, even though the emotional reaction pattern believes it's an external force, or the reaction is to an external force or an internal force of identity or of circumstance. Nonetheless, the emotional pattern of identity, what we call I, arises out of the body as an effect of the body and a self-contraction of the body. It is a self-seeding mechanism of body attachment. And I began to see that. And I knew that you could, in effect, educate that. But when you educate it, it doesn't lead to liberation. It leads to self-modification through self-awareness. But you always remain the effect of body attachment, except that you, using person-centered methods, becomes a self-transcending method. So transcendence becomes method rather than liberated consciousness. So method, the doing method of person-centered principles gives you a transcendence over your own ignorance, but it doesn't wake you up to what is beyond ignorance, apart from your own self-awareness of method over body sensation and the effect of that. And that person-centered, however refined, even into realms of transpersonal, where awareness is aware of itself in a way where there is a mindfulness, but that mindfulness has to awaken to itself. It's got to come away from the preoccupation with the body. The preoccupation of the body is either your reaction to the body, whatever that is, and the way you perceive the environment then becomes the way you seed this reaction to the body and keep that body attachment in a place of strength, ignorance, or you can be more of a body of self-awareness, but it's still defined. There's still an outer and the inner. The difference with the awareness that's collapsed within itself, that's gone beyond the body, is that from itself it sees it is the self. Therein is the liberation. So when from that place of liberation you see a reaction to the body by observation, the effect that is the reaction to the body goes through dissolution rather than modification. And it's through the dissolution of it that the correction then occurs in the body. It's not about correcting the effect of the body. The effect of the body can still be self-aware, and the effect of the body can distinguish self-awareness from the thought. It's not quite liberation, you see. The ego can be aware. This is the point I'm making. So when you get to this stage, you're with the people that do, they can get to that point of self-awareness over the effect of body attachment. And you can remodify it. Oh, this is a bit slow. Sorry. I'm not sure about the... I just got to do something. A problem with the battery. It seems to be loading. So anyway, the self-awareness can become refined. So the effect of the body, it can be aware. But that awareness, if it doesn't go within itself, is not liberated. If it remains in the effect, then the effect will be self-modification, will become a method of self-modification rather than if you're liberated as awareness through absorption, you are allowing for, yeah, dissolution. And when there's dissolution, there's a deepening where you go from the effect to the memory in the body. You go to the root of the effect. And when you go to the root of the effect, you start to enter the memories prior the effect of any given self-contraction. You see? Once you get to the memory of any given self-contraction, you're getting to the root of self-contraction. When you get to the root of self-contraction, there's simply memory. And when you are existing as memory in relation to absorption, the memory then reconfigures to consciousness. The memory is given back. to its essential nature, which is consciousness. It comes away from the demand of the effect and the self-seeding. When the memory is taken away from that effect of self-seeding, then it comes back to consciousness and it actually corrects. This is forgiveness. This is forgiveness. This is where the body is in its turn, this is the at-one-ment. It's only the body that can experience at-one-ment, you see. But it's got to be an at-one-ment in relation to absorption, nothing else. And absorption is complete surrender. There's no self-awareness driving a self-modification. You know, no one is trying to live in the likeness. One is simply allowing for the likeness. And the likeness comes when the body memory, uh, at the root of its effect of self-seeding, when that self-seeding goes through dissolution, then the form itself, the memory form itself, in its association to consciousness, consciousness then becomes an absorption, whereby from the absorption itself, in relation to itself, begins to administer the wine. The wine then enters that form and that memory, and then your seeing and saying of that memory becomes the truth, the truth that sets you free. You know, this, you know, you then bear witness and you can say what that illusion was all about. You see, you can see what that was why you had created an I, why, you know, what was this self-fulfilling seeding reaction of body identity. Memory is not body identity. Memory is just what's happened in life, you know. It's just what's happened. But what's happened in life, you've mistook for a reaction to life. You've become a reaction to life. And this reaction to memory has become a reaction to your life. And then the meaning that you give it, you believe is the true meaning, and you self-seed that meaning, but that's not the true meaning. The true meaning is absorption. And once absorption awakens, the memory, when it associates to absorption, then becomes one. It becomes one. Then what's happening is you've gone beyond duality. The duality is the effect of that giving it meaning, a mental and an emotional reaction. And there's two things. The effect of the memory becomes subject to the object, which is memory. Memory is a thought that you carry around with you, right, of your life. And here is where you begin to heal. This is where there is healing. If we use the word healing, there's other words: becoming whole, embodying. I like the word healing because that's how it felt. Felt like healing. So I'd see these people doing their program, and through self-awareness, becoming a very good effect to what they feel in the body. But that effect of what they felt in the body didn't change the body. Instead, it just changed its own effect, which in turn changed the feeling in the body. But it didn't allow for the memory to associate, to correct, to consciousness itself. So with the with the interpersonal method, the formal method, you can improve infinitum, or as absorption, you can undo completely, allow things to undo completely. And the interesting thing is, when you allow something to undo completely, it is observation that allows for completion, no other method. When you are from a self-awareness point of view, trying to complete um, conflict, when from person-centered, you try and resolve conflict, you try and complete it by understanding it and changing the behavior. So if you realize that